Chapter 28. Faith. The women stood below the church's arch, as if two chambers of a single heart, and people shifted in their seats to gawk, while arm in arm the two began to walk. Miss Tish's dress hung like a clothes-lined sheet, as sallow skin was draped on hollow cheeks. With eyes in sunken sockets, lips were thin, as if she were but skeleton in skin. Macree could see the deacon's true surprise and the embarrassment behind his eyes, as Doughty gauged reactions when he said,
"My love, what are you doing out of bed?"
The ghostly woman's eyes grew wide and crazed, as Tish's trembling arm began to raise, and stretching from it aimed a bony finger at Doughty like a venom-pointed stinger. To hold her arm extended made her weak, but still she mustered strength enough to speak and said to him,
"I hope you burn in hell."
He said,
"Forgive her, friends, she isn't well. Sometimes she has these angry episodes and speaks of crazy things God only knows."
But Tish went on,
"How could you do it, Nathan? Please, Millie, take her home for medication."
But Millie did not move, nor did her face, as puffy, bloodshot eyes were locked in place. Her cheeks revealed where tears had surged with power, and carved dry riverbeds in talcum powder. Tish said,
"You couldn't have the decency to even let me pass on peacefully?"
He whispered to an usher sitting near the stage and ordered,
"Get her out of here."
The youthful usher, though, was slow to act, as if some greater power held him back, which gave the deacon's wife time to announce, with gentle breath,
"I am an injured spouse. My husband has been having an affair with Millie here, who has his child to bear."
Though most were stunned, still others gasped with cries, as Doughty said,
"Don't listen to these lies. This accusation isn't serious. The opium has her delirious."
The deacon begged Miss Millie with a look, beseeching her assistance off this hook. Into Millie's hands he placed his fate by saying,
"Millie, set the matter straight."
Her silence at the weighty question caused all their anticipating hearts to pause. Miss Millie's roving eyes were all that moved, and looked on faces, some who disapproved, yet others showing her pity and concern, while gossips grinned with eagerness to learn. Still other faces strengthened her resolve. Miss Catherine holding baby Archibald, the empathetic eyes of Dr. Phipps, her mother's understanding, weepy lips. But Doughty's face was desperate and needed her to lie, which his expression pleaded. The woman's struggle stirred in Finn McShay a sympathetic heart. He stood to say, "Miss Millie, we have loved you from your youth. Your heart is safe with us. Just tell the truth." She looked at waiting faces in the church, and then at broken Tish, the friend she hurt.
"What Tish has said is true. Yes, every word."
He barked,
"Don't listen to a thing you've heard."
"But I could not go through with the abortion," the pleading deacon claimed.
"This is extortion. I've never touched the girl. She's after money. I'm being used. Don't let her steal it from me. Please, Tish, my love, you must believe me, dear."
The crowd was rapt and hushed so all could hear. Developing opinions were divided, and Red could tell the room was undecided. All those the deacon thoroughly deceived were holding on to all that they believed. Miss Tish's heart was torn from end to end, Whom could she trust, her husband or her friend? Her pausing granted Red a chance to think. Was this his opportunity to speak? Red felt that Rose's squeeze was not as tight around his arm and wouldn't pose a fight. And he could sense the marshal was absorbed with all the action, leaving Red ignored. He reached into his pocket, taking hold, but in that time another soul grew bold. A shaking voice was heard. "Y'all, it's true." The woman stood. "He did it to me too." This helped another woman gain the strength to stand and say, "Me too. The man's a snake." The deacon's skin turned red with shame and rage, exposed and all alone upon the stage. For Tish, the truth was clear, but still the answer was more demoralizing than her cancer. She didn't weep. She'd been through far too much, but used the pew to hold her like a crutch. The doctor went to her and lent his cane to help support her weak and feeble frame, while angry men were riled to tie the score, so Dowdy ran and locked his chamber door. The doc was right about the apple tree. It didn't need the aid of Red Macree. In his deep pocket, still within his grip, remained the needless Deacon Dowdy's whip. So Red Macree discerned that yes, indeed, the Lord had heard him in his time of need, and gifted him the greatest faith he'd known, the rotten apple falling on its own. A group of heated men with pounding fists against his door were shouting, "Open, we insist!" Above their clamor, the voice of Finn McShay, "You fools, out back before he gets away!" The mob with waving fists and threats were loud as they were pushing through the mingled crowd. When unassuming backs were turned to Finn, he took his key and gave the lock a spin. McShay saw Dowdy emptying a safe and stacking blocks of money in a case. But Dowdy aimed a pistol, unsure who was at the door. "Oh, good, it's only you." He lowered the gun. "Whole thing is a lie. I'm leaving town until this all blows by." "It's best you go and stay away a while, but leave the money for Millie and the child."
"You only want it for yourself, McShay. Or else you'll use the case so you can say you were the noble one, as if your deeds don't ultimately serve your greater needs."
He clutched the case, so Finn reminded him, "The maddened men will tear you limb from limb. You think her father will treat you gracefully? I'll let you go, but leave the case with me." Reluctantly, he handed off the case, and with a twirling robe he was replaced by brilliant light that spilled upon the floor as Dowdy vanished through the other door. It opened to the backside of the church, which didn't yet show signs of men who searched. But watching every move the deacon made was Boone, who sprang and sprinted from the shade. While mounting stirrups, Dowdy felt a pull as Boone drove down his teeth in flesh and wool. He shook his head as if he were a shark, which caused the man not dog to snarl and bark. The deacon drew his gun, despite the pain, and tried to calm his hand for steady aim. He winced as Boone incised another bite, but still he lined up Boone within his sights. A single shot was heard. It stilled the air, electrifying skin and lifting hair. Of all the outcomes the Macrees presumed, they never dreamt that shot was meant for Boone. The church was quiet, not knowing how to act, as stunned parishioners began to ask each other if they thought the dreadful sound was Dowdy being brutally gunned down. When Finn McShay rushed to open wide the door, he saw what had occurred outside. He saw the deacon was still on the ground, just as the mob came wrathfully around. They kicked away his gun and grabbed the man, and they took justice into their own hands. When cringing Finn McShay could look no more, he shook his head and closed the chamber door. The bulking briefcase heavy at his side contained the only hope Finn could provide. He took the case inside the church and weaving, he brought it to the women who were grieving. He said, "Miss Millie, all will be okay. As Deacon Dowdy tried to get away, he packed this case of money for himself. I thought it better used for someone else. So take it. It'll help you stay ahead, to raise the child on more than 2-day bread. I'll help you if you ever fall on need. So will the congregation." The nods agreed. Miss Millie's hands went to her mouth as tears of gratitude and hopefulness appeared. But Millie said, "This ought to go to Tish." So Tish replied, "It's yours. That is my wish. Money serves no purpose for me now." And Red was watching keenly, awed by how the Lord had worked this matter out. He mused on how someone like Finn McShay was used. The doctor asked McShay, "Was someone shot? And all my services in need or not?" "No need. The deacon fired at a dog. Now Dowdy's being serviced by the mob." With worry, Clancy asked, "Was it a hound?" "It was. The dog had drugged the deacon down, a wild, fierce attack, but don't despair, 'cause Dowdy's bullet only pierced the air." Relief undid the tension in his brow, and Clancy sighed, feeling peace for now. And Terrence smirked and said, "I sure is sore that we ain't got to go to school no more." While laughing, Caroline and Clancy snuck a look, and when their eyes were found, they stuck. The doctor offered to the Moreys and Macrees, "Please, won't you all come to my home for tea?" Before they left, Red signaled to his son to come aside, away from everyone. And there within the church, Red finally got to pull out of his pocket what he brought. The whip was tightly wrapped around his hand.
"The way a man respects another man is by just letting him walk in his own boots. And his own choices, well, they his to choose. So this here whip ain't mine, but yours. You see, old Dowdy, he done challenged you, not me. You straight on looked that challenge in the face. What's done with this here whip, it ain't my place."
With widened eyes he took the leather whip, the fearful thing that used to bite and rip. But now those fears had been completely quelled. The whip was like that lifeless snake he held. Red put his heavy hand on Clancy's arm and said,
"He won't be causing no more harm. For wicked Dowdy got what Dowdy should."
He smiled at his son.
"You manned up good."